The morning rush at Lincoln Elementary was always the same, mothers pulling kids along with half-zip jackets, cars honking impatiently, and teachers waving their arms to keep order. Among the crowd, a small boy dropped something delicate. A knitted blue scarf fluttered from his tiny hands and fell onto the damp ground. Before his mother could notice, the school janitor, an older man in worn clothes, with rough hands from years of labor, bent down and gently picked it up. He dusted it off carefully, as though it was made of glass. But the boy's mother, distracted and tense, turned at that exact moment. She saw the janitor holding her son's scarf and anger rose in her chest. In front of everyone, she snapped, "Hey! Don't touch my son's things." Her voice was sharp, filled with judgment she didn't even stop to examine. She grabbed the scarf from his hands, glaring at him as though he had overstepped his place. The playground grew quiet. A few parents looked away awkwardly. The janitor didn't defend himself. He lowered his head, as though he'd heard such tones many times before. But just before he turned away, he whispered softly, almost to himself, "He reminds me of Daddy." The words were quiet, but the mother heard them. She froze. For the rest of the morning, her mind replayed those words over and over. "He reminds me of Daddy." What did he mean? Why her son? Why say it in such a fragile, broken tone? She couldn't focus on her work, and by the time school was out, guilt began gnawing at her chest. That evening, she came back to school. The halls were empty except for the faint smell of disinfectant and the sound of a mop sliding across the floor. The janitor was there, slowly wiping the hallway tiles. She hesitated, then walked up to him. "Excuse me, about this morning. I shouldn't have yelled." Her voice trembled. He looked up at her, his tired eyes filled with a kindness she hadn't expected. "You don't need to apologize, ma'am," he said softly. But she insisted, "No, I do. What you said. He reminds me of Daddy. What did you mean?" The janitor leaned on his mop and let out a sigh that carried years of sorrow. "I had a son once. About your boy's age when I last saw him. He used to wear a blue scarf just like that one. His mother knitted it before," he paused, swallowing hard. "Before the accident. We lost her in a car crash. And my boy, he grew quiet. I worked 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. One night, I promised him I'd be at his school play, but I couldn't make it in time. When I finally arrived, he was already gone. Ran off. I never saw him again." His voice cracked, and he quickly wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve. "Every time I see your boy, smiling in that scarf, I remember my son, what I lost, and the promises I couldn't keep." The mother's heart twisted. She thought about how quick she had been to judge him, how harshly she had spoken. She saw not just a janitor, but a broken father still carrying love he had no place to give. Her own husband was away on military duty overseas, and their son often asked when Daddy would come home. In that moment, she understood why the janitor whispered those words. Her son reminded him of his own. From then on, everything changed. She greeted him warmly in the mornings. She taught her boy to say hello, to thank him when he held doors open. Slowly, a bond grew. The janitor started fixing small things for her son, repairing a broken lunchbox handle, patching up a toy car. He never asked for thanks, but the boy always smiled and said, "Thank you, mister." One winter afternoon, her son fell on the playground and scraped his knee. Before she could get there, it was the janitor who scooped him up gently, carried him inside, and cleaned the wound with a father's tenderness. When she arrived, breathless with worry, she saw her son leaning against the janitor's shoulder, calm and safe. It broke down the last wall in her heart. As weeks passed, she learned more about him. His name was Henry. Once, he had dreams of becoming an artist, but life had dealt him blows that left him with nothing but this job. Yet through all of it, he never complained. He just kept giving what little he could. One day, her son came home carrying a sketchbook Henry had given him. Inside were drawings of a boy in a scarf, laughing and playing, the son Henry had lost. At the back, he had written, "Take care of your daddy while he's away. And remember, you are loved more than you know." Tears blurred her vision. She realized then that Henry wasn't just remembering his son, he was helping hers hold on to his father's love across the ocean. When her husband finally returned home months later, the first person her son ran to introduce him to was, "Mr. Henry, my school friend." The soldier shook Henry's hand firmly, holding it longer than usual, as if he could feel the weight of all Henry had carried. Henry just smiled, humbly nodding, his eyes glistening with gratitude. By the end of that school year, the mother stood before a camera, sharing her story.